This is Gemara Baba Basra Daf Nun Vav, and we're holding on. Nun Vav Amid Aleph, 6 lines down. The first word line is Kershus Gittin Dami, going full circle as we wrap up this sugya to the Mishnah, as we deal with the Kinyan of Nichsei Hager. Most notably, we had Shitas Rav Yochanan that held that most recently, notably, that when you have a divider or you have a chatzav plant that splits up the field with regard to the nichsei ager, and therefore a kinyan done in part of the field, and then there's this plant or then there's this boundary, will stop the kinyan from the rest of the field. So asks the Gemara, what happens if that's not the case? Ein sham loy meitzar v'loy chitzev. You don't have this plant, you don't have a boundary, mai. What's the halacha? So Pir Shamrinis Mishmai, Kol Shenikras al Shemai, anything that is called by its name, this is the field, then you have a kinyan. They call it so-and-so's water hole, then it's considered one field. Why? Because that's the shame that it all has, and therefore a kinyan in one part will indeed be a kinyan in the whole thing. Yosef Rav Acha bar Avya kamed Rav Asi. Rav Acha bar Avya said over the name of Rav Asi a similar halacha of Yosef Ikamer Mishmei to Rav Asi bar Chanina. Chatzuva mavsek b'nechsei ager. Mamish, just like Rav Yochanan said, a chatziv plant will split up the estate of a ger, and if you make a kinyan, it'll only be until that point. My chatzuva, says the Gemara, what is a chatzuva? Rav Yudah Marav Sheboi Tichem Yisrael Esaretz. It's a plant that Yeshua utilized to mark off different parts of the land in Eretz Yisrael when he split up the field. That is the name. That is this chatzav plant. Says the Gemara of Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Once we mentioned one halacha that he said, we bring down another. Laimana Yeshua, says the Gemara, Ella Ayarois Aindes Alakvulin. Yeshua only wrote only the cities on the boundaries. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Kol Sharua Yakadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe Chayev Meiser. Any land that Hashem showed Moshe is obligated in Meiser. Lafuke Mai. What does that mean? Says Gemara. Lafuke Kini Kinizi Vikad Moini. This comes to exclude the lands of the Kini Kinizi Vikad Moini. These are lands of additional nations that Avram Avinu by the Bris of Bein Absarim was promised, but Moshe Rabbeinu did not see them. So says the Gemara that when we eventually get these lands, they will not be part of Eretz Yisrael, and they will not have an obligation in Meiser. Tani Rabbi Meir Omer, Naftucha Arva V'Salma, that one of these three places are Naftucha and Arba and Salma. Rav Yehuda Omer Har Seir Amoin Umayav. They're the areas of Har Seir Amoin and Moyav. Rav Shimon Omer Ar Disikis Asya and Aspaima. Those are the three areas. So machlekes, where are the three areas that we are discussing that would be pater from Meiser? We continue with the Mishnah on the bottom of the Vav Amud Aleph. We have two edim that a person used the field for 3 years, and then the edim are found to be zaymim, which remind ourselves means that imanu ayisem, that the edim are found that they could not have known that this guy lived in the field for 3 years because they weren't there. You're testifying that Reuven lived in a field in New York for 3 years. But guess what, Edim? You lived in Eretz Yisrael for those 3 years, so you cannot have known. So what's the halacha? Meshalmin lo yisakol. The Edim have to pay the owner for everything. Of course, in the following the dictum of Kasher Zaman Kenya Asalai, that what you tried to do to someone else, you're going to get. So you try to make the owner lose his field, they have to pay it entirely. Shnayim barishayna, shnayim b'shniya, shnayim b'shlishis. Now what happens, a little bit more of an intricate case. We have two Edim that said Reuven was in the field for the first year. Two Eidim that said Reuven was in the field to the second. Two Eidim said Reuven was in the field in the third year. So we have 6 different Eidim, 3 groups of Eidim, and in combination, we have Eidos that Reuven made a chazak of 3 years. And then they are all found to be Zayimim, and none of them were around. So what do they have to pay? Says the Mishnah on the top of the Vav and the Beis. Mishalshin beinayam, they divide it amongst themselves, and each set has to pay a third of the value to the owners. And concludes the Mishnah, Shleisha Achim, 3 brothers, Echad mitzareif imayim, and one other aid, it combines with them. There were brothers that testified that someone's in the field for 3 years, but the brothers can't be Eidim on their own. So someone else was mitzarv with them. Haril Sholosh Eidiyos, says the Mishnah, they consider 3 different Eidiyos. Vehein Eidus Achas La'azama. So very unique halacha. With regarding to creating a chazaka, we say yes. Each of the brothers combines with one other aid, and then this guy has a chazaka that he was there for 3 years. But Klabe Hazama, says the Gemara, Mishnah, they're considered one Eidos, therefore they're going to be obligated entirely. So says the Gemara, who is the Shita of the Mishnah? Mas Nisan is whom? Deloi ki Rebbe Akiva. Why is the Mishnah like Rebbe Akiva de Tanya? We learned in a Raisa 4 lines down, Amar Rav Yoisi kishalach Abba Chalafta, Eitzel, Rav Yechlan ben Uri. When Abba Chalafta went next to Rav Yechlan ben Uri, Lil Matayra. Varmel Rav Yechlan ben Uri, Eitzel Abba Chalafta, Lil Matayra. Some say it was Afoch. Rav Yechlan ben Uri went to Abba Chalafta. Amar lo yarishachlu shana rishana b'fnei shnayim. The following was the halacha. Let's say someone who ate a field for 3 years, b'fnei shnayim. Shniya, ate the next shniya, the second. Excuse me. He ate the first of 3 years in front of one set of edim. Shniya b'fnei shnayim, shlish b'fnei shnayim. So each of the 3 years in front of a different set of edim. Mao, what is the halacha? Is this considered a chazak gimel shanim or no? So Amar Loi, so he said to Rav Yechlan ben Uri, Harezu chazaka. Amar Loi, Rav Yechlan ben Uri responded, Avani Aymerki. That's what I thought also. Hello, what should I tell you? Rabbi Akiva chaylik b'davar. Akiva argues. Zeh. Shaya Rabbi Akiva Aymer. Davar, he learns the pasuk. V'loi chatzi davar. That in order to get a chazaka, it does not work if the Eidim are not there for the entire 3 years, and different Eiduyos will not combine. Shitas Rabbi Akiva. So says the Gemara, our Mishnah is killing a lot like Rabbi Akiva, because in our Mishnah, clearly the Eiduyos do combine. But says the Gemara, Rabbanan Haydavar Lochati Davar Mayavle, what do the Rabbanan do with Rabbi Akiva's drasha? Maybe if you're going to tell me Nute Echad Aimer, Achas Begava, Ve'achas, Ve'echad Aimer, Achas B'Kreisa. If you're going to tell me that is when one says, when they're testifying about Eidos, whether an Isha is a Gedailah, and one said she had a hair on her back, and one says the hair was on her stomach, and then the Rabbanan say Chatzi Davar, you cannot prove that these are Shtei Sairais. Hi Chatzi Davar v'Chatzi Eduyoisi. This is not good, because this is a Chatzi Davar is also half an Eidos. Why? Because each aid is splitting. One aid says about the hairs on the back, and one says hairs on the front, and therefore it's 2 Eduyos in 2 different halves. So it's not like our case. In our case, you had 2 Eidim in year 1, 2 Eidim in year 2, and therefore you just have to split the davar. But over there, it's Chati Edus, Chati davar. So what do the Rabbanim need the pasuk for? Elamuute, you know what they need the pasuk for? 12 lines to the bottom. The first one is Shnayim Ma'imrim Achas Begavav, Shnayim Ma'imrim Achas Bekresa. In that case, the Eduyos do not combine. Why? Davar V'loi Chatzi Davar. And now that we're on the topic of Eduyos, Amar Rav Yehuda, a similar halacha. Echad Omer, one says Achla Chidim, Echad Omer Achla Siyairim. One Eid says that he ate barley for 3 years. One Eid says he ate wheat for 3 years. Harezu Chazaka, says the Gemara. So Masler Rav Nachman al Miata, Echad Omer Achla Rishayna Shlishis Chamishes. How can you tell me it's chazaka? 1/8 says he's eating one item, 1/8 says he's eating another item. How in the world have any shaykhs? So you're going to tell me if 1/8 says he was there for years 1, 3, and 5, the other says 2, 4, 6, you have a chazaka? How could that be? Amalei Rav Yehuda, what are you talking about? Hachi hashta. Hasam bishata to come hasin mar, like come hasin mar. In your case, 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6 are not the same years, and therefore no shaykhs. Over here, they're all saying he was there for 3 years. Just as Shiloh, was it wheat? Was it barley? Okay. So my ikala neimar. So what are you gonna say? Says the Gemara, the people don't necessarily, they're not simulated, they don't necessarily pay attention whether it's wheat or barley. And that's the reason why we could, yes, allow their chazaka to combine. Pick it up from here, b'siyata dishmaya.